When the pressure is high and the energy low, that's when your business needs inspiration to change and to grow. It's also when true captains show up. Hi, I'm Mark Francis, and I'm the host of this podcast that invites industry leaders from all over the world to answer the question, who's your captain? When you need to motivate and to mobilize, to develop and enable your team. Whether you are new to being a leader or you aspire to be a captain, this podcast is for you. Welcome, everybody, to Who's Your Captain? I'm Mark Francis. I'm delighted to be joined today by Bruce Martin, who is CEO of Tax Systems, has been for about 3.5 years now. So there's lots of insight. I can't wait to hear from you, Bruce.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
There's loads of angles we're going to take, not least about a South African upbringing, moving over to Europe, and what does that add to the mix? So, but first question is definitely because you have a background as a CFO, a real specialist in finance and in innovation and technology, and then elevated to CEO. What's your big insight about being the ultimate leader?
Mark, for me, leadership starts with clarity and direction, right? Mm-hmm. So if people don't know where they're going, everything else just slows down and comes to a grinding halt. People go down different avenues that don't really explore the right things in the right way. And so once you have that clarity, in place and you got the right mechanisms in place, the pace follows thereafter. So people can move faster because they're not really second guessing the priorities that they need to be focused on. And then, for me, most importantly, once you have that clarity and direction, then you can start to empower people. And trust only scales when that direction is clear. Otherwise, if you try and empower before you have that clarity in that direction, it's actually just noise, because then people are trying to do things above their stations in the wrong way. And it doesn't really allow you to have that sort of just like pure vacuum of great work. So over time, I've learned that, good leadership is not just about, it's not about control at all. It's actually creating the conditions where talented people do their best work.
Yeah, that's really cool. And there's so many things resonating for me about sequence. Have clarity first. That is the role of the CEO. Give clarity. And that creates an environment where people feel and are empowered because they're clear. I love that.
Yeah,
that's really, really clear for me.
Absolutely.
Much of your life has been about managing transitions. So you were very much a finance specialist in the corporate world and then in private equity. So there's a transition.
Yeah.
Why the transition from finance in Vodafone to finance in private equity? What was that decision about?
A large portion of my life I spent playing cricket at a relatively high level, and so for me it was always a competition, right? Like sport for me is always a competition. I'm a competitive guy. That's what gets my juices really flowing. I love the cutthroat nature of competition and the win-lose nature. And when I looked at like an ownership model that is akin to sport, PE is what I came back to, where, you've got a defined window of opportunity and you have a very clear win or lose. You can have an okay, maybe a draw, but, typically you win or you lose, and you don't have to work 30 years to decide whether you've won or lost over the time of your career. So I think that win-lose mentality and then the constant refresh you can have every 3 to 5 years, go and do something different, relook at your career. You don't have to be necessarily pigeonholed down one kind of route. And I've shown it through my career, I guess, where I've come out in finance. I actually stepped out of finance and I came back to finance, and now I'm into being a CEO. So, for me, that's, private equity enables that quite nicely.
Yeah, really neat. So this is the point that says it's finite. It's very clear that you have to hit X target by this date. Yeah. Not unlike the challenges of sport. You win or lose or get an honorable draw, but usually it's win or lose.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that because it plays into, I've just written a book called The Captaincy, hence the podcast, Who's Your Captain? And it absolutely says if you've got a background in sport as you have, Bruce, it lends itself to great leadership because you get that you've got to be on the top of your game, but you've also got to inspire your team around you to be on the top of their game. So it's not just about you. So who's your captain is you're the captain, but really you want lots of captains in any great team.
Yeah, and also like, sport at a high level always teaches you about discipline, right? And those kinds of things you really need in a, fast-paced environment like private equity or any corporate environment, really.
Now, tax systems, tell me a little bit about tax systems, because what I know is that you provide the leading software for tax compliance in UK, Ireland, and across Europe. But tell me a bit more about your business.
So this business was spun out of KPMG back in the early 90s. It was a husband and wife couple who started the business. And as you say, they were specialists in corporation tax software, primarily focused in the UK. And then they moved in and branched into Ireland. And we ran that way until about the mid-2010s. The business was listed on AIM, and then it was taken private again by another private equity firm before our current investors. And that's where we kind of, under that previous ownership, we really kind of started transforming the business. And what we needed to do is move that business from a legacy on-prem delivery system for software into what we call SaaS, right? Software as a service type delivery system. And that is a big, hard technology transformation. So we spent the last 5 or 6 years doing that. And now as we stand here today, we have a fully SaaS-enabled platform that can sell multiple taxes globally. So now we really position for the next stage, which is accelerating and getting that global presence and getting the brand out there with great products and happy customers.
Congratulations on that. A successful business. Really cool. It's really cool because you're the boss, right? So well done. It's great. 5 questions I know the answer to, but to give context to our audience. How many staff do you have across the business at Tax Systems?
We've got just over about 150 people in Ireland, in the UK, in Holland, and in Belgium as well.
So is that 4 different sites? Do you have actual head offices, or is it very much remote working?
Yeah, so our main kind of, our biggest office is here in the UK, and then we have small, like, kind of, what would you call?
Satellite?
Little satellites, yeah, little hubs and satellites in different locations. And actually they've come mainly, not the Irish business that was started in, as I said, in the early 2010s, but the Dutch business and the Belgian business, they were acquisitions we made in 2023 and last year. So we've got offices in those locations for those members of those teams.
You're a business of tens of millions in terms of revenue. What's your growth aspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I think under my tenure as CEO in the last 3.5 years, we've doubled revenue. I would like to, in the next 4 years, double down and triple down again. I think, as I said, it was all about technology transformation. We still doubled revenue under that big program that we had. Now, for me, it's about revenue acceleration. So yeah, triple what we are now would be a good outcome in the next kind of 3-4 years.
So you've just scored a century and you think I want a triple century, basically. If I
let's chase Brian Lara's 400 not out.
Yes, let's knock it off. Yeah. I love that. Well done. It's great. I love it. I love that drive, Bruce, which is innate within you. It's a real drive for I want more. I love that. In our previous conversation, you were talking about the importance of high performance.
Yeah.
And you said we are a performing company. You've just described that with big aspirations, great people. But you said, you know what, we do not believe in discussions with the team that we are yet high performance. Help listeners understand what is high performance for you? What characterizes true high performance?
I mean, of course, like high performance is hitting your targets, right? You're hitting your goals, and it's not just the what, but it's also how you get there, right? So what is hitting the targets, but how you're getting there is super important. So, for me, exceptional performance is about consistency, speed, and of course, quality, and the ability to fail fast and adapt, because you need to really know what avenue you're going down, if that's going to work, if it's not, make that decision really, really fast. And, you'll know, sometimes the worst decision is no decision. In fact, the worst decision is always no decision. You'd rather know a decision you make is the wrong decision really fast, then you can go the other way. If you don't make a decision, you kind of get stopped, right? So for me, it's the decision-making process that's really important. Have you got the right data? Have you got the right people in the room to make those decisions? And that shouldn't happen just at a very senior SLT level. That should happen actually really close to where the work happens. So for me, what you want to be there in the moment. For us delivering a major tech transformation, that you want people at the coalface having the empowerment to make good quality decisions, and not feeling like everything needs to be like fed up to senior management, because then you become a bottleneck and you can't move quickly, right?
Yeah, that's clear for me. And there's a lovely link to what you said earlier about this. You create an environment where people are clear, what's my role? And I need to make those decisions. I don't have to go upwards for any decisions because I've got the clarity and the competence to make those calls, which is empowerment of the coalface. Really cool.
Absolutely.
How do you judge that? How do you put some sort of measure that's not just outcome measure? Because you mentioned it's the how, isn't it? It's the environment, it's the method. How do you measure high performance and say, okay, we are definitely moving towards that ultimate goal?
So there are things that you need to put in place, foundations that you need in place in order to monitor progress, right? So, for me, we have a very disciplined OKR framework. Everything ladders from our 5-year plan into annual objectives, then into quarterly OKRs. And for the listeners who don't know what OKRs are, it's objectives and key results. So set the objective, but have very, very measurable key results that you need to hit. It can't just be woolly like, I'm going to get this done. How are you going to get it done? What's the number going to be? What day of the week are you going to do it on? Really, really specific. And then, as you mentioned, people's roles need to be crystal clear, right? They really need to understand exactly what their success measures are for them in their role. Because obviously, I'm setting like kind of the OKRs at a company level, but people need to know for them what is their measures of success. And then, of course, what we tend to do in our business is we get our senior leadership team and our senior, our C-1, as we call it, together on a quarterly basis, and we look across those OKRs. We look at everyone else's measures of success, and then we do a race across the whole business, across all functions, just to make sure that we really understand.
Communicated with.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Because things, again, if you're sitting in sales and marketing and you get your OKRs from your head of sales, how do you know if you need to be supporting someone in the operational side of the business in order to help them hit their OKR, right? So that's really important to make sure that everyone else can see those cross-functional dependencies, and then you can see who's overloaded and who's not overloaded. So.
Yeah, one of the things that when we first chatted, really I admire about how you lead is that there's a strong element in you, Bruce, that says, I'm going to make sure this happens. And what I mean by that is, as an example, you said when we were setting up 3 years ago and since, there weren't any job descriptions. So you rolled your sleeves up and started writing them, right? Rather than you delegate that to someone, it's so important to get that clarity transferred into what does it mean for me on the coalface that you wrote those job descriptions yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, look, like it was a team effort across the SLT, but we didn't have what is that job purpose? What are the accountabilities for that job? And what are the measurements of success? And you need those, right? Because it's not just about getting to the outcome, but it's also giving your employees a reason for being, right? Like, what does it mean to be a good junior developer at Tax Systems? I want to know. But more importantly, how can I see a career path that goes from junior developer to mid-level developer to senior developer? You don't just want to be some random person in a business that has no kind of view of how you can elevate yourself and have a successful career as well.
What is triggering for me is my last corporate role, which was 20 years ago now. I've run my own learning business since then. But 20 years ago, I was the global head of HR, which wasn't really my vocation, but circumstances got me to that place. And all of the things you've described about career management, succession planning, job descriptions, that was all within my remit.
Okay.
And what I admire about your business is that you've driven that. You've done the HR stuff as a leadership team rather than delegated to some HR person. And I think there's real strength in that. And kudos to you. It's really, really cool. How are you managing development? So classically, I'm one of your team at whatever level. I've got clarity of job description. We've got a performance appraisal process. So I'm getting feedback quarterly and things. Excellent. Good job. How do you continue to develop? What's your development strategy for people in your business?
So I mean, look, for me, that's certainly the next phase of our work in 2026, right? Because the first thing is getting those foundational like bits in place. That, as you say, the next layer on top of that is, okay, I am a junior developer. How do I get to be a mid-level developer, right? So, for me, a lot of work on coaching our people managers to know actually how to build a proper development plan. Everyone goes, you should have a development plan and you should sit down every week and have a one-to-one. But actually, I've seen it in big corporate world. It's just a tick box. It doesn't actually lead to anything. So for us, we have set aside budget for people development. People managers know that there's budget there, so they should be sitting down with each of their direct reports and going, right, this is how, if you want to be a junior developer and you want to get to a mid-level developer, you can quite clearly see what attributes you're missing. Some of that will be, hey, you need to go on a training course and you need to learn this language and get more proficient at this. But some of it may be softer skills going, hey, you actually need to interact with the product function and understand how the designers are designing the product. So let's go and get you in some communications classes and courses and things, right? So, for me, it's also, class-based, go and get an education, but also putting people in positions where they can get experience of those skills. And you can only know where to put people and how to put them into those places when you have a clear development plan to say, these are the skills we need to develop. And actually, I can send you into that meeting and I know you're going to get exposed to these types of conversations and that's going to help your business acumen. That's going to do this. It's going to do that. And then we can come back together and see how things are going.
Yeah, really good. And as you were speaking, Bruce, the sort of HR language was playing through my brain around to help develop people from junior developer to senior developer. You need education, as you've just described, and that might be some classroom. It's certainly coaching related as well. You need to have experience. And I love your perspective that says, we're going to give you that, not, in the current role, but we'll give you additional experience, what project management, whatever that is. So that's expanding. And the third one is exposure, that you're not just going to do your job. We're going to put you in meetings where you are working with more senior people within the company or with external customers, and you're learning by exposure. Plus, your brand is getting seen more readily by the wider business and therefore is enabled to be developed. So that's really, really cool. The 3 E's. Manager as educator. Manager as educator. It's one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about, that if you've got a manager who's great at getting the task done and hitting your OKRs, big tick. Are they also great at developing people? And it's the difference that makes the difference. What's your focus on manager development? How are you going to do that in 2026?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? I've seen it too many times where a really solid individual contributor is really good at their job, gets promoted to lead a team, but they have zero skills around leading a team or how to lead a team. So as I said earlier, that's where we're doubling down this year, is really to educate our people managers on how to manage people. And often the people that are not necessarily the smartest or the best individual contributors are actually better people managers, right? So for me, it's about, we have a line manager pledge, which we've refreshed at the back end of last year. And then it's a case of building out the development plans for them and allowing them to share their own experiences of leading people, because you have various different people that have had different experiences and different length of leading people, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and creating a forum where they can actually talk to each other. That for me is super important, to make sure that they can learn from each other's experiences, some mistakes, some positive things, so that they can all be better as a group of people leaders.
This is great energy from the leader for me, because I get the drive, I get the ex-elite sportsman drive to hit big targets and grow.
Yeah.
But also it's the how, isn't it? I'm going to create a high-performance culture, enabling people to be the best version of themselves. That's the energy I get, and that's really cool as a leader. You're getting the balance between the business performance and people.
Thanks, Mark. I think the one thing that I've lived my life by is, like, you just can't settle. So I think it's easy to say, hey, we're going to do these things and then we're going to be high performing. But once we get there, that the version of high performance would have changed, and we need to keep moving, right? And that for me is always about, how do you optimize everything that you do to make sure that, and every person to make sure that they're their best versions of themselves. They enjoy their career, they enjoy their job, they have a passion for what they're doing. And again, that comes back down to, is the vision right? Is the direction clear? Because, high performance is not just about, we've done these things and that's because we're high performing. It's an intensity and an energy you can feel, right? There's less moaning about the business and more excitement about what we're building as a company. And people spend more time doing work that energizes them and less time on droning and creating noise, So for me, then decisions happen without escalation. Objectives actually get smashed, not just met, and actually work becomes genuinely fun. So for me, that's, also enables an early warning sign. And when you have that good energy, if that energy starts dropping, hey, that's when senior leaders really need to get in, because the orchestra is not being played as nicely as it should. So the conductor needs to take control again in order to make sure everyone's playing their part nicely, right?
Super important point you make here, and it's the energy point around we've achieved our targets, we've surpassed them, actually we've gone way past them, great, but we're not satisfied. We need to do that even more. We need to stay intense and focus. And for me, that is high performance, that you can feel it when you walk into, I do a lot of work in sport. You can feel high performance teams when you walk into the changing room or to the playing field in practice. You can see it. You can feel it. There's an energy which is supportive. It's camaraderie, motivation, but it's also challenging. It's like, I want more of myself and I expect more of you. And that's an interesting balance, the balance between challenge and support. Because if there's no challenge, there's a comfort zone that just says, we're doing okay, but we're not doing great. And the hunger's gone. So that energy, the point about energy is right on the money.
Yeah, and I think
now, Bruce, one of the things...
Sorry. The last point I'd like to make as well is just always being open to learn, right? And you think you know it all, and then you see a different scenario, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't know it all. And I think that as soon as you think you've made it and you know everything, you're kind of lost. So for me, it's always about making yourself open to advice, doing some reading, exploring ways of doing things that you would have never thought of doing, to me is super important, and is something, again, I strive for personally, but I always encourage people to do. It doesn't mean you have to listen to everything everyone tells you, but it's having that open mindset to say, I'm not perfect. Our company's not perfect. There's always room for improvement. What's the best way of finding rooms for improvement? Or asking other successful people that have built successful businesses.
Yeah, and you know what? While I was listening, I was thinking, yeah, that's exactly right. And I was thinking about the South African rugby team around high performance, because the results are there, right? The results consistently, twice world champions in a row. But for me, there's several things that make the South African rugby team high performance. One, the ultimate leader in the coach is unbelievably driven for more. Not satisfied,
Absolutely.
want more.
Yeah.
The captain is role model captain, leader, open, great communicator, open to learning. Sia Khaleesi, outstanding athlete, outstanding human being, which helps. But it's a team packed with captains. You can take 3 or 4 star players out, and the team doesn't drop intensity, it doesn't drop clarity, it doesn't drop motivation at all. Mightily impressive, frankly.
Yeah, that depth of
go on, what's your view as a South African?
What about the rugby team? I love it.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think you're. What I think you leaning towards there is strength and depth, right? And having the right people in the right seats at the right time. And as businesses transition and as they grow, not necessarily in revenue, but in operational growth as well, you have to keep refreshing talent and understanding exactly what people you want in which seats. And in private equity, specifically making those decisions quite quickly, right? And making changes when you need to, and making sure that you can rely on the people that are sat next to you. Because you know what? If you want really talented people in your business, they want to be working with the best people that they can work with. And when they see poor performance and nothing getting done, it's actually a detractor to working for your business. So you have to have the right people, because that intensity competition actually brings attracts good talent that you want in your business.
Yeah, the lovely point about as the tide rises, all boats rise.
Yeah.
So we're all rising, because if you're not a high performance culture. If it's only
Exactly.
superstars and everyone else,
and
it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I don't believe that high standards are a harsh thing. I think they're really attractive, right? Really attractive. If you have high standards, that will attract the right people in.
Well, that's it. Now, one of the things I love to do with our guests is I actually go on ChatGPT and I put in what makes Bruce Martin special. It's a great thing to do if you're just about to meet someone that's important, a partner or whomsoever, a new employee.
Yeah,
ChatGPT will tell you, and it's cool. So these are the top 3. Deep blend of finance and technical insight. So you blend your financial skill set and competence with a real understanding of the technology and tech. Championing digital transformation in tax. So you're seen as a champion of transformation, and leads strategically. So how does that sound?
That sounds awesome. I don't necessarily see myself as all of those, but I always feel like I have room for growth. But yeah, that's quite flattering. I think it's nice.
It's cool, isn't it? It's cool. Well, that's ChatGPT. It's out there.
I don't know if they're talking about the New Zealand cricketer Bruce Martin, or whether they're talking about the CEO Bruce Martin, but who knows?
No, it's definitely you. It's definitely you. So I'd like to reflect on that in terms of you as a leader now. 3 years as CEO, before that CFO, so in leadership positions for a long time now. What did you learn in your first few months as a leader of tax system, i.e. CEO, when you first became CEO, and those dynamic first 3 months where you're going, right, how does this work then? What's your insight and learning from that period?
The first 3 months, I mean, I think, I was really lucky to have like good scaffolding around me. So I had a really experienced chair that our investor brought in, and they also kindly allowed me to have a CEO coach, and that combination was really good, because I had a really good experienced business operator, but I also had the ability to speak to someone outside of the business and get like a very neutral perspective. And I'm not going to pretend I was really nervous taking on the CEO role. I was a young guy. I didn't really feel like I was an established CFO. And I didn't want to sound like an idiot if I was speaking to the chairman. So I'd sometimes test those ideas with my CEO coach. And, when you're a CFO, you work your whole career to become a CFO, and you really know what it means to be a CFO, and you know what your job is, and you know what you need to do. You can go through all the tick boxes and say, I need to be, the CEO's number 2 man, and I need to make sure we get through our audit, we get through, we don't breach any of our covenants when it comes to our debt. But as a CEO, you can come from anywhere in the organization. And so actually the first kind of 3, maybe even 6 months, I was trying to really battle with, well, what kind of CEO am I going to be? Like, I'm not a hero CEO. I'm not the guy that gets out throwing inspirational speeches everywhere. I'm more a head down, lead by example, follow me. We're going to do something special, but I'll do that quietly, but you'll see it. So I was trying to really figure that piece out. And then obviously, I have ideas. Are those ideas crazy or not? I don't know. I've not had the experience of running a business before. That's where the CEO coach is really helpful, to be able to kind of, fine tune those ideas, or actually get some confidence to say, no, Bruce, you're absolutely on the right path. This is perfect. This is what a CEO should be doing, right? So, it was all just new, and I needed to know where kind of the guardrails are in which I should work. But it was, looking back now, I'm such a different person to the person that first took on that CEO role. But that's what experience is all about, right?
And so tell us more then. Tell us about the CEO now, because 3.5 years in, you can reflect and say, okay, this is how I've evolved. What are the main aspects of being a CEO now, the Bruce Martin way?
I think it's the full acknowledgement that I am completely in control. So before you're kind of thinking, well, what part is the investor playing? What part is, the rest of the board playing? But ultimately, like I'm in charge of the operational side of the business, and I need to make it happen. But more importantly, I'll be really honest. I studied, business strategy at university, and I was like, you got to have this vision and this mission. I was like, this is just a load of rubbish, right? Like, it's just, a bit of hot air, and it's all lofty. But when you actually have to lead, you realize how important that North Star is, right? And how important having a mission is to the people that you are leading. And, now I would say, like, I really feel like I own that North Star. Before, I felt like I inherited it. I inherited a vision and what we needed to do before we got our new investors in. But since our new investors have come in, I really feel like now I own this journey, right? This is my journey to go. It's what I've kind of sold to our new investor, and also am bringing the whole of the tax technology market on this journey as well, right? So I feel a real ownership in that North Star and where we're heading, and that actually, I never thought I'd say this actually. That's something that I do get up every single day and think about, and I'm really, really motivated by. And if you had asked me 5 years ago whether like leading for a vision and transforming the way tax professionals actually do their work would be something that I wake up and get really excited about, I would have said you're crazy. But that's certainly like a huge shift in my mindset. We're actually now that mission that we're on as a business, it's in my veins. It's in my veins. I can't explain it more than that, I guess.
I love the transference from theory to, wow, this really does matter, and it gets me up in the morning. This North Star, you call it, I think it's great descriptor actually of a really powerful vision stroke mission. Is a North Star that guides every decision, frankly, and keeps you motivated towards something better. It's really cool. And I'd love you to give some advice for people who are not, either their recent experiences is to be in private equity, or that they aspire to. What's your advice about how do you manage that relationship so that your investors are delighted? What are the main elements of good management of a private equity business?
I'll talk just generally about my experience so far in private equity, and I think I'll start with, I think the biggest misconception, and PE get a lot of bad press about, is this like cutthroat, aggressive nature. They come in, they change everything, and they blow it all up. That's certainly not my experience. For me, what PE really brings is pace and discipline. So decisions are made quickly, but from what I've seen, based on data, and then really well executed, right? And so I think sometimes, because these guys are managing lots of different businesses, they really can see what the future looks like. And so actually, organizations don't move fast enough for the investors' kind of mindset and thinking, right? So leadership is all about helping the business catch up, and executing and catching up with the investor, through the clarity, focus, and kind of the decisiveness we've spoken about already. So for me, it's like really empowering. I love that. And for me, it's if you are working and leading a business and you still have that longer term mindset, the short term outcome kind of looks after itself. Right. So I think everyone thinks like, hey, PE come in and it's like they just want to get their return in the next 5 years. They don't care what they do to the business. That's where I feel as a CEO, you have a important job to do in going, yes, I'm going to deliver you your return, but I'm also going to let this business exist for another 10, 15 years after you. And that for me is really important. And so those two things can live together, and they don't have to be in conflict with each other.
Yeah, it's exactly my experience as someone who works for clients. My clients are businesses, corporations, and some are within the private equity world. And it's exactly what you've said is my experience. There's smart decision making from the private equity investors. There's clarity of outcome, absolutely, but there's an amazing focus on investment. And what I mean by that is you need to do this better and that better, and we're going to fund that. So from a learning and development perspective, there's a business that I worked with for the last 5 years where the initial input was you've got managers and senior positions that should be leading and they're not.
Yep.
And therefore we will invest in that. And it was my business that was the leadership coaches, I suppose. And they said, here's the outcome. Here's the specific outcome we want from that It's not just give them some training and some coaching. It was, we want them to behave like that. And it's your job
Yep.
to get them there. Took us about 16 months, and definitely remember this. And then we got a call and they said, thank you. You have achieved that task. Well done. And I said, what would you like us to do next? As a salesman would. And they said, well, nothing. Thanks very much. Goodbye. You've done your job. And that's not the normal relationship with a non-PE where it's I've been their supplier for 10 years.
Yeah.
This is very targeted. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think
now,
just following on that conversation, I think a real key thing that needs to be in this PE to operating business relationship is full transparency, right? It seems obvious. And it seems like, hey, you should have that. I think a lot of people fear for their jobs. They kind of try and brush things under the carpet. My experience is the more transparent and open you are, the better, because ultimately every single person around that board table is incentivized in the same way to make the business successful. So a problem is a shared problem, right? So let's get all our combined wit and intelligence behind this, and let's approach it head on rather than trying to, do it yourself or have best endeavors. More than likely, these guys have seen a lot of this stuff before because they've got so much experience across a wide portfolio of businesses. So, actually share your problems. Let them know what they are. Obviously, come with solutions. That's what they want you to do. You're the operator,
yes,
but don't be shy to be open and honest. And, I've done that in both my relationships with my counterparts in the PE fund, where I've gone in early on and go, hey, let's talk about ways of working. Let me really understand if there is a problem, how do you want this communicated? Do you want it early on before I potentially had a chance to look at it and investigate it fully and come up with solutions? Or would you rather go off, look for some solutions and then come and talk to you? And then at least I'm not having to guess and make that up. We've had that conversation so that when it does happen, I can say, hey, you remember you told me you wanted to know really, really early on? Well, here's really early on. I can see something coming down the line. I'm nervous about it. I'm going to go and do some investigation. These are the things I'm going to look at, and I'll get back to you, but I just want to let you know that it's there. That kind of understanding of ways of working and who likes to be communicated and dealt with in certain ways is super important.
I love this. A key theme I'm hearing from you, Bruce, is clarity. Clarity at the start of expectations, what people's roles are, how frequent should the communication be. Give us a flavor. How often would you be in contact with the private equity guys? How frequently, I suppose?
It really depends on what's going on. So we're doing a lot of kind of acquisition work at the moment. So it's daily contact.
That makes sense.
Outside of M&A, in just kind of normal course of operating the business, I have a weekly catch up with our PE guy. But again, for me, I speak to our chairman once a week as a formalized session. But we just have a policy where it's WhatsApp, pick up the phone. If you need anything, just give me a call. So I probably speak a couple of days a week. Whether it be an update, whether it be something funny, something good, something bad, something ugly, whatever it may be, just sharing news, because again, this person at the private equity fund that backs us, he likes being part of, the successes, the failures. He wants to be part of that. And so, I'm happy to share that. So there's no problem.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a couple of things to say through my experience is that that depends, doesn't it? Because some private equity say, here's the funding, we trust you, go. And you don't have much interaction. They're a bit disconnected. And others are really passionate about the business and are heavily involved in a positive way. Love that. The other side of the coin for me is that it tends to be, in my experience, CEO level, and that the managers of the business don't really have any interaction. They're left to do their job, and it's really your role to manage that interaction. Is that about right?
not for us, right? Like I'm happy for our PE guys to talk to any one of our SLT members. I think what I do see as a really important part of my role is being the pressure valve release for stress that comes from the board, right? So for me, like I don't mind if someone on the PE side wants to reach out to our CRO or our CFO or whatever. In fact, like I welcome that. But if there's some heat going on, I see my job as the buffer between the heat and what's happening in the kitchen, right? And as I said earlier, like I want my people to be the best versions of themselves. They shouldn't have to feel unnecessary heat. That's my job to take that on. So.
Really cool. I've got 3 more questions for you. Right
Okay.
now, CEO, tax systems, what's your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge is just running fast enough. I think that's that for me is we've got so much we can do, and we can do a lot of things really quickly now with kind of the advent of AI. I think everyone's kind of feeling that. So for me, it's just probably running fast is coupled with just being focused, right? Because there's lots of things we can do. It's really exciting. It's a low tech adoption marketplace. So there's a lot we can do in our industry. And it's just choosing those right things and running at them hard, getting them done right, delivering, and then moving on to the next thing. Because you can do, 10 things, 40, 50% of the way, or you could do 5 meaningful things 100% of the way, and you'll be far better off for having done the 5, right? So I guess it's more, I've talked myself around more focus, right? Just keep focused on those priority things and then run really hard at them.
And this is connected, of course it is. What could stop you? What's the big potential barrier to that lovely exponential growth that you're targeting?
I don't think there's anything, Mark, to be honest. Like, I'm not just trying to be like too positive here. It is an exciting space to be in. I think I guess the only thing that could maybe derail us if like we just lost a whole bunch of people or something, right? I don't know, or some sort of disaster that no one wants.
Retention of talent might be the one.
Exactly. For me, but I really believe like we're building something really exciting, and like the company feels it. I think for the first time, I think people really, really are excited about what we're building. Our customers are super excited. Our partners are super excited. So, all the stars are aligning quite nicely, but that's come from 4, 5, 6, 10 years worth of, real hard work of getting the fundamental business operations right, doing the technology transformation. And now we really get to like show off about all the talents that this team has. So it's really exciting.
I love this because, this podcast is called Who's Your Captain? And clearly you are the captain. You feel ownership, you take ownership, you're the stress reliever where appropriate, you're the driver, and you're creating an environment where there are lots of other captains. That's the point. Who's your captain? It can't just be you if you're going to achieve that great growth target. It's really cool. Final question, and it's really for anyone who is new to being a CEO. You had that lovely transition where someone said, "Can you be the boss now? You're a CFO," and they said, "We'd like you to be CEO." It's like, right, okay, let's see what that's like. What would your top tips be? Top 3 tips to be a CEO when it's your first chance?
Don't be shy to admit where you feel weak or exposed. And then therefore get the right scaffolding around you in order to not feel exposed. Believe in yourself. I think it's easy to go, I should go and speak to that person. Of course, take those bits of advice, but really trust your instinct. That's why you're there. So, go for it and believe in your thoughts. But then also, specifically in the PE environment, like know your customer, know your detail, do your prep, plan well, don't forget the fundamentals that have got you to that point, right?
Yeah, huge. And you've mentioned it a few times. Scaffolding, stakeholder management, classically, and this spirit, energy. get the energy right, this high performance energy that says we're driven, we're focused, we're together, but we're never really totally satisfied.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bruce, just a brilliant discussion, and I hope hugely valuable, and I suspect hugely valuable for anyone who's already in a CEO role, and certainly anyone who aspires to be. So a huge thank you to you, Captain Bruce Martin. Thank you.
No problem, Mark. Thanks for having me. Cheers.